actually enjoy treating your customers like a piece of shit, because that's how I felt when I went to the Alamo Draft House. Okay? You know what? I didn't know that I wasn't supposed to text in your little crappy-ass theater. It was too fucking dark in that place for me to find my seat, all right? I was using my phone as a flashlight to get to my fucking seat. So excuse me for using my phone in USA, the United States of America, where you are free to text in a theater. I was not aware that I couldn't text in your theater, all right? I've texted in all the other theaters in Austin, and no one ever gave a fuck about what I was doing on my fucking phone, all right? And it was on silent. It wasn't on loud. It wasn't bothering anybody. You guys obviously were being assholes to me, and I'm sure that's what you do, you know, to rip people off. You take my money, and then you throw me out. You know, I will never be coming back to your Alamo Draft House or whatever. I'd rather go to a regular theater where people are actually polite. And, you know, I'm going to tell everyone about how you are. And I'm pretty sure you guys are being on purpose. So thanks for making me feel like a customer. Thanks for taking my money.
It's chocolate. You should be very proud, Detective.
Shut up!
You've made a delicious life for yourself.
Said shut the fudge up! What?
You don't come near here. You stay away from here.
Here he comes.
What?
Are you listening, David? I was saying how much I admire you and your ice creams. You have incredible taste in fine ice creams.
What the fudge did you just say?
6 delicious flavors. They're so lovely. And once they're gone, David, they're gone.
David, step away from the prisoner. Step away, David. Step away.
What's in the box?
I'm not gonna tell you until
What's in the box? What's in the box?
We each have our weaknesses. It appears that gluttony is my sin of choice. And you add the mystery. I couldn't resist.
What's in the malted fudging box?
It's empty, David. It's empty.
No! It was full. 6 delicious flavors. Only available this month.
I know. It was delivered to your home. It was delectable.
Do you think anybody's gonna get, like, offended by this?
Just tall white Karens.
Monotony. It comes in all shapes and sizes. Dull, tedious, just plain boring. But what is this? A contender, perhaps? Something unboring by the looks of it. Jabs right at dull, an uppercut to tedium, something that keeps you on your toes, keeps your head on a swivel. A knockout punch to your old, boring workouts. Welcome to Fight Camp.
The Greening the Gateway Cities program provides trees that are planted by DCR foresters and crews hired from local communities. When you sign up as a potential tree recipient, a forester will visit your home or business to determine the best location and species of tree for maximum energy efficiency. Easy care instructions are provided, and it's all free. Find out if you are in the zone and learn more at maurbancanopy.org.
educational crisis in this country is the civil rights issue of our time.
So you go to Washington, D.C., our capital, right? Go right down the street. Some of the worst schools in America are less than 2 miles from the state capital.
As a family, how was our report card?
Show me a lazy child, I'ma show you a lazy parent.
There was that village that was there. It is different.
I mean, because you're dealing at times with a lot of trauma. And that trauma sometimes may be caused by the school, but a lot of times it's outside of school.
It was a very chaotic household. There was always someone yelling, someone fighting, the cops being called.
Students don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. You know calculus, who cares?
If there was any system anywhere that was failing white students to the tune of 83%, the system wouldn't exist anymore. It would have been broken into a million pieces.
Now, the expectations for what success are
is so low. Like, we're letting kids make up work, you can make it up, don't worry about it, do it again.
Instead, we make things crutches, and I don't like that.
I think the real issue in education is mediocrity. The person who comes to work every day and just does the job.
You have failed these students. This is child abuse. And those who have abused these children should be held accountable.
Shaolin shadow boxing and the Wu-Tang sword style. If what you say is true, the Shaolin and the Wu-Tang could be dangerous. Do you think your Wu-Tang sword can defeat me?
On guard. I'll let you try my Wu-Tang style.
Same with you. Same with you.
Tomorrow's forecast says there's gonna be rain. Whole lot of snow and a drizzle of pain. Black skies and some crying eyes. But today's gonna be alright. Today's gonna be alright.
Oscar Mike Radio is a proud podcast partner of Reach Across America Radio, heard every Thursday at 11 a.m. and Sunday at 8 a.m. Eastern. They're also big supporters of the nonprofit I Got Your Six, Two Lives at Once. And with every wreath you sponsor through Oscar Mike Radio, $5 goes back to this great organization dedicated to making a difference in the lives of veterans, law enforcement, firefighters, and first responders battling PTSD. Two Lives at Once pairs these brave men and women together with dogs rescued from kill shelters. In this way, 2 lives are saved at the same time by saving each other. Donate now. Go to wreathsacrossamerica.org/Oscar Mike Radio to help. That's wreathsacrossamerica.org/Oscar Mike Radio.
This campaign is about a new vision where our streets are safe, our schools are succeeding, and our local economy is growing. I stand here not as a candidate for mayor, but as a lifelong member of this great city. There will no longer be the city side and the school side. There will only be the Brockton side. Let's roll up our sleeves and get to work.
This community has limitless potential. We have the ability not just to be a city, but a city that represents everyone, from the Irish community to the Italian community, from the Cape Verdean community to the Haitian community. We have every single people that we have to make this city stronger, better than ever before. I am looking at Brockton as a family.
Grew up and graduated from Brockton High, built my career here, and today I'm a proud homeowner and now Vice President of Northeastern Savings Bank, serving the community that helped raise me. Access, opportunity, and results. That's what I stand for, and that's what works, and that's what I'll bring to the City Council here in Brockton.
At the risk of repeating myself, I'm going to say again, in plain, down-to-earth terms, speak as though you're under the power of the ultimate spirit in the universe, the ultimate mind, the ultimate force. Speak as though you're under that power, and speak to these people as though they represent the ultimate. They are the force, they are all creation, they're God, they're all creatures on the live. We are singing in a chorus, all our voices. So listen with your entire being to these people, because they are coming from the center of their being. Something beyond all words, even the word God, because you can't name this.
Growing up in Mission Hill, Boston, my parents early on raised me to know about community, to know about community leadership, the positive role models like Brother Blue, Melnia Cass, and Mel King. Community leaders who inspired growth, community leaders who inspired the next step. Well, I'm Keith Hayes, and I'm running to become Ward 5's growth into the next step.
Master Yoda I am. And listen you must to hulazoom.com.
Just step aside and
Can you dig it? Can you dig it?
Yeah.
Can you dig it?
You like some motherfucking action heroes in it. Yeah.
This is blasphemy. This is madness. This is
yeah.
Step into the twisted mind of my literature, designed to get into the depths of your mind, administer sickness around to mimic the lights of snuff cinema. What you must get into, you're nothing but pops. Remember you Homer and Happy Simpson, son. Nothing Ithaca. Talkers like the northern half of Korea's peninsula. ESP your island like the booth, something sinister. ESP your island like the booth, something sinister. ESP your island like the booth, something sinister.
All right, it's your boy Sinister One broadcasting live from the City of Champions. You are watching The Booth. We are talking about, Ken, that's coming up. That is coming up.
Okay.
I actually don't even have topics when we get to Trump troubles because I just want to get right into the meat and potatoes of this craziness that's going on. But let me get into my sponsors real quick. I want to thank everybody. Last week we had on Brockton City Councilor, Lodge candidates, Jeff Charnell, Jed Horesco. Thank you for coming on the show. Next week, keeping it short and sweet. Michael Douglas Brito, MDB Electronics. If you got your controller that needs to be fixed, get it out to him. 24, 48 hours, you're back to gaming. Deanna Marie's music, It's Personal, 494,000 streams available now. It's Personal. Next project, Blacklisted, is due out this month. Tactical Target Systems, if you need those zombie targets, reach out to tacticaltargetsystems.com. I Love Boston Sports, those are those t-shirts. Check him out. And then Kimberly Ann Empowerment Photography. Ladies, if you want to get those pictures, reach out to Kimberly Ann Empowerment Photography. And Underwatch Protective Services, you saw my Slingshot for Shriners ride last weekend. Thank you. Big shout out to them for providing the protective services for us with security vehicles for our ride. Also, call Larry. Handyman Services, 774-826-6549. And let's get into the news booth because we got my two guys here. It's First Tuesdays. It is August 5th. Turn him in. Da Vinci Leonard, still not caught. Double murder suspect. Let's go, people. Turn him in. There is no need of this. We need to get this taken care of. Also, in the entertainment booth, let's get into the entertainment booth real quick. Our childhood, our teen years, we're seeing pass before our eyes. Last week was Hulk Hogan, Ozzy Osbourne, and then this week we start off with Lonnie Anderson, WKRP in Cincinnati, 79 years old. Man, just a lot of our lifehood. I don't know. How's it feel to you guys when you're starting to really feel like your parents felt when people passed away? It's like, wow. Real quick, guys, how does it feel, knowing that these are people watched and spent time with and made a connection with?
Yeah, I mean, it just reminds you that Father Time's undefeated. It's scary. I mean, the amount of people who are losing left, right, and center. Lonnie Anderson was 73. I remember her, having it like everyone else. Every pubescent boy watched KRP, just stared at her, and it's just sad, just very sad.
Last week, yeah, because last week was Ozzy, and Ozzy meant a lot to a lot of people.
I think most people are shocked Ozzy lasted this long.
Yeah.
I mean, he did not leave, he made his mark in music, but he did not live a clean life. You know what I mean? Same thing with Keith Richards. Right. I mean, how did Ozzy Osbourne and Keith Richards outlast everybody? That's what I want to know.
You're right. There's so much about it. These are guys that just live that life, and we're proud of living that life. Also in the entertainment booth, Battlefield 6 this weekend is the open beta. Battlefield 6 doesn't have all the crazy skins like Call of Duty, all the comic and celebrities. Battlefield 6 is just straight soldier on soldier, war tactics, multiplayer open field beta takes place this weekend. Make sure to sign yourself up. Get in there. Also, Stop Soldier Suicide's fundraiser coming up in September is 100 hours of gaming challenge. In other words, you game for 100 hours and you raise money to stop soldier suicide. I'm going to be reaching out to Travis Partington and see if we can get on that. Also in the entertainment booth, The Mandalorian and Grogu, May 26th, next year, the big screen release, and I can't wait. In the sports booth, Braintree, one win away. If they win, they're headed to Pennsylvania for the Little League World Series. Guys, I don't know if people realize this. When a team goes to Pennsylvania for the Little League World Series, it's big money that comes into your city, comes into your town. When Middleborough went many years ago, they are still benefiting from their trip to Pennsylvania. This is a big deal. Brockton, and I hate to say this, Brockton has had this thing where they never wanted to be part of Little League. They had the Cal Ripken. They had some other thing they was involved with. It hurt their city. We had a lot of young kids with talent. Brockton would have probably went to a ton of Little Leagues, World Series, but they didn't. But R Squared used to be in Florida. Florida used to send a lot of teams, right? Little League teams to the World Series. You used to always see a lot of Florida. Is that because there were so many counties? Is that why we used to see a lot of presence of Florida in the?
Yeah, I mean it's all about, you got to win the regions, right? So if you can put together a competitive team, I mean, I suppose the more kids that are playing, it's almost a disadvantage because you're spreading out the talent. What you need is a dominant team, and that happens by accident, right? Some of these teams stay together for a few years. They don't necessarily reshuffle every season, and so they become really good because you just add a couple of good players, and all of a sudden, it's almost like in college football senior year when you work your seniors for a few years, and then junior senior year you've got a team that's ready to go in all the way, and so that's kind of what it is with Little League. You just, first of all, you've got to have parents that support it. You've got to have the resources, and then it's really competitive. I mean, these teams are really, really good, and all it takes is one bad inning, and you're either in or out after a full season or years of doing this. So you got to give credit to these kids and their parents and their coaches.
Ken, your thoughts? Because there's a lot of legal stuff too when this stuff happens. You get to this level, when it comes down to traveling and all this stuff. We've seen some of these trips to Pop Warner Super Bowls and things like that end up in court because people get slighted and stuff.
Yeah, but you also got to remember something else about where Florida is situated. You have a lot of players coming in from the Caribbean, Central South America, and where do they go? They settle in Florida. So you get a lot of that, mini farm system going on. Also, there aren't a lot of strong football in Florida, nor there are strong hockey in Florida. Massachusetts, you see strong football teams, hockey teams, basketball teams. You don't see that in Florida. The main sport in Florida is baseball. Like in Texas, the main sport is football. It dominates. In Massachusetts, you spread your athletes among multiple sports. So a lot of these kids in Florida, better or worse, and I think it's worse, play baseball year round. It's not good for their health. It's not good for other things. But yeah, that's why you see a lot of teams in Florida. I'm surprised Massachusetts has sent so many teams down there. But
yeah, we've had this is like, I want to say, our fourth team.
Yeah,
that's been on that cusp of getting to Pennsylvania World Series. Like I said, when Middleborough went, it absolutely changed that whole town. It brought a ton of money into that town. So it is a big deal at that level. So big ups to Braintree. Good luck to them. I hope they win this game and they head out to Pennsylvania and get on that. Also, big news. We had the president, the senior VP was on this show. He actually had broke it to us, but we couldn't say anything. But the story is now here. The PBR will be making its debut here at the TD Bank North Garden on January 2nd and 3rd of 2026. The booth will be there covering that event. So you'll be able to see me. It will also be Frank Zanowski, the man who started me liking PBR. Todd Magazine.
Yeah, that was his baby.
Yeah, that was his baby.
Frank,
so
yeah, I mean, Frank has been a huge fan of PBR going back 20 years. He must have gone out of his mind that's finally coming here.
Yep, and it looks like we will be revisiting or bringing back, rebranding when the dust settles. This one production. So we will be starting up a PBR podcast with these two guys, Frank Zanowski and Levi. So we're really looking forward to that. We're in discussions with PBR about getting some. Also in the sports booth, Celtics owner Bill Chisholm is going to buy the WNBA Connecticut Sun, and it looks like they're going to be moving them to Boston. If you guys had heard earlier, Donnie Wahlberg, who's up here now filming the spinoff for Blue Bloods, had been wanting to purchase a WNBA team. I'm pretty sure now that Bill Chisholm is going to connect with him and possibly be co-ownership. That's what I think is going to go down. That's in my opinion as to what's going to happen. And we'll see what happens there. In the legal booth, Massachusetts State Senate approves the cell phone ban in schools statewide. This actually started here in Brockton when we came out of COVID and we were seeing all this crazy stuff. Brockton turned around and began this cell phone ban, which ended up being very positive. You had a lot of parents pissed off and upset at the fact that kids had to lock their phones up. But guess what? We went to school without phones all our lives.
Yeah.
Parents used to have to call the office and be able to talk to your kid. Really no need for kids to have phones in school. They're seeing the advantages of it. You guys surprised that this went as far as the courts in order to get this banned? Why can't we just tell parents? You guys surprised?
Not at all. Not at all.
Oh, okay.
I know this, but little inside information. One of my best friends here in Melrose is on the Board of Education. And there are two things that in the last couple of years that have driven him straight up a wall because the fighting's been vicious. One is the budget and the Prop 2.5 override, and the second is the cell phone ban. I was talking to him. He said, "Ken, you would think that I'm suggesting that we do virgin sacrifices on the 50-yard line at the football games." These kids and their parents are so addicted to these god-awful things. That's his exact words, quote, god-awful things. He says, you might as well be suggesting we do open heart surgery without anesthesia. And
it's that bad.
It's that bad. These kids cannot put it down. And he's a parent of two kids himself. And he said, especially his daughter, he's got a son and a daughter. They're out of college now. This was probably a couple years ago. But it was like pulling hen's teeth. He said, from the early age, they're getting addicted like it's heroin. And he said, it's disgusting. But, and I remember when our superintendent did a partial cell phone ban, what they did was when you came into school, you checked your cell phone with the office, you could get it back during their lunch period, but you had to return it to the school after that and then pick up at the end of the day. There was a group of parents who petitioned the school board to fire the superintendent. And it was a very close run thing at the board meeting. That's So no, I'm not all surprised. I've heard the same stories from my brother and sister-in-law in Connecticut. I don't have any kids, so I really can't, but I've been hearing this a lot from a lot of people who do have kids. So if you're asking me, I'm surprised? Absolutely not. But I say one thing. When I was in high school, there was one telephone that was accessible to the students, and that was a payphone in the first floor near the office. That was it.
Yeah, that's what we had.
And you were, and if you had one of those, I don't know if you guys remember this old calling. The phone company would give you a calling card, like a credit card, just for phone calls. If you had one of those and you had to walk around with change, you were like, cock robbing.
R squared, because you're a professor in higher learning college, but still, something like this is this something that would fly in colleges, or is it something that's already part of some colleges already?
Yeah, colleges are always talking about whether or not they want to have a system-wide rule or leave it up to departments or individual professors. I try to be understanding, because you don't really know what's going on in people's lives. And, some of my students are married with kids at this point. They're not traditional college students. So they might want to have the ability to check the phone. So I try to be a little bit understanding. It's not the same as elementary school or junior high school where you can absolutely take it away from them. There's no reason they need it.
Exactly.
And so what I've done was I used to say, I had a no electronics rule, none, because you don't know what they're doing. And they might look like they're paying attention and they're playing solitaire or reading emails or working on homework for another class because they, don't want to do it at home or something like that. And so I banned it. But then, some people say, well, that's not fair because some of us actually do use it. We like to take notes or whatever. And I get it. And so I started being understanding and saying, okay, you can use electronics, but only for note taking or to be following along with your materials. It had to be classwork, and anybody doing anything else will be asked to leave and they'll be marked absent for the day, and that'll, count on their grade. But the problem is, how do you police that, right? So even if you walk around the room, they're going to minimize the screen before you get there. And I don't walk around the room. I don't go spying on it. So I'm really struggling with that right now. I actually have to prepare my syllabi for this semester, and I'm not sure what my electronics policy is going to be, quite frankly.
Oh, really?
It'll be limited, but I don't know if I'm going to go back to an all-out ban or some kind of extreme limitation, but I don't know how to police it.
Right, and here's one of the big debates about this whole thing, and I get both sides of the arguments. Unfortunately, we have school shootings across the country, and a lot of parents are like, well, I want to be in touch with my kids, God forbid, blah blah blah. But sometimes I feel like in a school shooting situation, I feel like there's an upside to a cell phone because you can stay in contact with your child if they're in the lockdown on the opposite side. I get it, but the other problem is when you have that contact, and we've seen it here in Brockton, we've seen it. We didn't have a school shooting, but we see it. The kids who have access to phones and call their parents, and now guess what? You've got parents swooping down on a school when you've got either an active shooter, and I get it, I understand it. So I think that's a bad situation too. I mean, you can't have 100 parents showing up at a school, which is what happened in Texas. That was one of the bad things that happened. Parents started getting these calls. They start leaving work. So I'm torn. I'm torn because it does keep you in contact with that child, but at the same time, it can cause a ton of chaos with people just showing up unannounced.
I'm sorry. The cell phone in response to a shooter is kind of like shutting the barn door after the horse has left. I think the real problem is to avoid the school shooting to begin with. That's what you need. And I agree, having parents show up in any disaster area. You talk to any first responder, any emergency responder. The last thing they want at a incident is a bunch of civilians trying to render help, because then you end up hurting cats. Stay out of the freaking way. Let the first responders do their job. Because they're the ones that are trained. They have the equipment. They have the discipline. You're not gonna do any help. Stay the freak away. Don't call. I mean, I remember. I remember in high school, there was a good friend of mine, Keith Sligman. He was on the rescue squad, and one of the worst thing was a car accident. They called the Gawkers block. There were people slow down to look at the accident. No, get out of our way. Don't block the roads. We can bring in the ambulance. We can bring in the heavy rescue, bring in the fire trucks. Stay out of our freaking way.
Man. Oh, there was one last story in the sports booth that I'm not happy with, that I got to go back to and talk about, because I'm not happy with. I have this love-hate relationship with sports, and I wasn't happy when gambling was approved pretty much nationwide, because we're seeing the changes in watching sports when it comes to gambling. Gambling is now part of broadcast. I don't like the fact that we're broadcasting what the spreads are. I know Fox started it early on last year, and I think so many people pissed off, they decided not to put those up there. But here's the problem. Now we have another big multi-million-dollar deal. Now, ESPN acquired a betting website last year. I don't agree with that. I don't think a sports broadcast network should acquire a sports betting site. I think that's wrong on all levels. That's my opinion. But now the NFL has purchased part of ESPN. But as part of the deal, in NFL being allowed to buy this section of ESPN, ESPN now acquires the NFL Network and the NFL Fan Zone as part of this deal. So now NFL Red Zone and NFL Network will now become exclusive to eat the ESPN brand and packaging. So NFL Red Zone and NFL Network were part of also the dish. I'm trying to figure out how this is going to work out. I don't agree with these moves that we're seeing. You've got this Paramount deal that was done last week where Paramount was purchased by Skydance, and they're saying that part of this was the reason why this whole thing went down with Trump. We can ask questions on that afterwards, but I'm under this administration. I'm looking at some of these moves being made by networks, and I don't know, guys. I don't agree with it. I don't like it. I feel like I feel like companies are setting themselves up to be monopolies. In this case, ESPN, for me, after seeing this, I feel like they're moving themselves into being a monopoly, a sports monopoly. I'm not agreeing with it. Again, like I said, part of my taste about professional sports every year seems to get worse and worse and worse. R Squared, you're usually pretty vocal about sports. You like sports, but you've always kind of had that same thought process of stuff you hate about it.
Yeah, I mean, I absolutely enjoy watching sports, and I do look forward to it, but at the same time, it becomes harder and harder to enjoy it because, I like to watch sports and I like to do fantasy. I think that's fun. That adds to the enjoyment because you can, be interested in more teams and more players, and that can be a lot of fun. But when you cross the line into gambling, I think it really becomes problematic. First of all, there's way too much money in professional sports and college sports now. And that's going to ruin them. You'll see in our lifetime, you're going to see a huge decline because of the influence of money and what have you. I'm not against people being paid what they're worth, but the salaries in professional sports are so inflated that if people are claiming their worth is against other people, who are already getting inflated salaries, then it's just a spiraling out of control. And that's our money, folks. That's our money. If you go to a game, you're obviously paying for that, but it's the TV rights and everything, and it's all the prices we pay for the goods that are advertising and everything else. It's incredibly expensive, and so when you think about that to me that detracts from the game. Obviously, I'm not thinking about salaries when I'm watching the game. It's just when you're a fan of the game and you try to pay attention and you want to learn the rules and all the behind the scenes stuff, that the money is the thing that's going to bring down all of our sports faster than anything else, because it's just going to be spiraling out of control, and that's just not right relative to the rest of society. People who are doing good, honest work, important work, meaningful work, and they can't even afford to go to a game, let alone these players who play a game, who can buy up the world. So I think there's going to be a day of reckoning for that coming up in our lifetime, not in the next couple of years, but it seems inevitable to me that it's a clash of cultures that's going to happen. For now, I continue to watch, I because it's enjoyable for me, but
right.
I try not to contribute to the financial aspect of it.
Clancy in the chat says every corporation is monopolized. Ken, you actually have a family member. I'm not sure is that person still with ESPN or so? You kind of got an insight as to this deal and kind of a little bit of a scoop.
A little bit of a scoop here. I was talking to him about this. What's called the problem with ESPN. This has been going on for a while. They've been owned by Disney. When Disney initially took over ESPN, it was run by a bunch of sports nerds, sports nerds and jocks. Over time, more people from the Disney entertainment venue have come in to run ESPN. And one of the things the sports nerds and the sports jocks have been very worried about it is because there's been so much commingling between the league, the television, and gambling now is manipulation. Because now they're treating the sports games as an entertainment product. And while no one claims this has ever happened, and we'll be very clear about this, what happens when the main revenue comes from the television and the streaming rights? Well, what drives that? What drives that, right? Eyeballs. How many people are watching it?
Mm-hmm.
So it's become more what they refer to this as the WWF syndrome, meaning is what happens when you manipulate it? What happens when you need to get teams to have excitement? What's the most exciting thing in sports, right? What's the sports story that we all love, right? We love the underdog, the player that everyone's overlooked, the team that everyone is, the Rodney Dangerfield. I mean, people forget the Boston Patriots were the joke of the NFL 20 years ago. I mean, I remember times when you could go to Schaefer Stadium and buy the cheapest seat, and by halftime go down and sit down in the 50-yard line because people had left the game. Now, granted, that was before Gillette Stadium, before Patriots played, before they started to win. But imagine, again, that's people forget the Patriots stunk, and when they first came on the rise, everyone was excited. Everyone was excited. Like when Kansas City won their first Super Bowl, everyone was really excited about that because Kansas City was the joke of the league. They called their full. Remember, we used to joke about Reed, the full Reed, him blowing games. It was exciting. Now Patrick Mahomes, now no one likes it. But imagine this. I'll give you a scenario. Who is probably one of the worst professional baseball teams right now? A team which is like literally you can't pay people to go to their games. Who would you say that is right now?
In baseball?
In baseball.
Was it Chicago last year?
No, I'm talking. Think about it. No, Cubs. Remember, Cubs won a World Series in 2015 or 2016.
Okay, all right.
So I'm talking about a team that hasn't seen a playoff or World Series in 40 years. A team that just moved because they were so bad because they wouldn't build them a new stadium. The Oakland A's.
Yes.
Okay, now they're a joke team. They first of all they moved 4 or 5 times their entire life. Remember, people forget they started out in Philly, then they went to Kansas City, and then Oakland. Now, imagine next year the A's go on a tear out of no place. They signed a couple of guys you've never heard of, and their bats start getting hot. And by the All-Star break, they are the leaders in the AL West by 7 or 8 games. Wouldn't you think that gains a lot of interest, right? Because hey, this is the joke team, right? Team that had to leave Oakland because they couldn't get enough fans to show up at the stadium to buy a new stadium. They're in Las Vegas, right? Brand new city, new me, new year, right? Wouldn't that generate a lot of eyeballs? Wouldn't a lot of people start watching just to see if the A's can do it, just out of sheer curiosity?
Right.
Okay, great story, right? Everybody loves a comeback story. Well, what if you couldn't trust that? What if you think the games were fixed? Now, does anyone remember? No, I'm gonna say there is precedent for this. Remember the Black Sox scandal of 1919?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay. That's the reason why, for years, professional sports stayed away from gamblers. They didn't want them being influenced. Now you're bringing them in. Now you got the combination of, right? Now you got the combination of you got people wanting ratings and people making money off of gambling. How does professional sports maintain their integrity when you have that kind of pressure?
And that's my feeling because I've watched a lot of games last year, and there was some games that I felt like you could almost kind of predict where these games were headed because I want to put my tin hat on and say that sometimes it takes that errant bad flag in the fourth quarter. And a lot of people talk about the bad officiating. We've seen it year after year, bad officiating. Sometimes you sit back and you wonder, is it really bad officiating when you start looking at the betting that's going on? And you've had some crucial calls last year. Crucial calls last year that put teams in positions where bettors lost their seats last year, and Vegas made that money.
Right. We've known for years it's going on. There was the BC scandal when the organized crime was shaving points. We've known about that. So this is nothing new. Now we're institutionalizing, is what I'm saying. I love baseball. I do. I always do. But the last time I went to a professional baseball game, I went with Colonel Rob because he was kind enough to have some seats for me. That's the only reason I went, was watching the Mets. I refuse to go to professional baseball games anymore. I'm paying because I just, I think everything is overpriced. And the players don't seem to care. I love minor league baseball games. I don't know if you ever go.
Brockton Rocks here is a good time.
Yeah,
Savannah Bananas are really making a good name for themselves.
Right, exactly. That's the minor league teams are what professional baseball was 50, 60 years ago. And Rob's right. Who can afford, take a family of 4. How much would it cost you to go to a Red Sox game?
Oh, Jesus Christ. You're looking at a $500 day minimum.
Yeah, exactly.
Family of 4 at the Red Sox game. It's 75 just to park a car.
Right.
If you don't take the
exactly. Exactly.
It's insane.
But I'm saying, I remember when I was growing up, we would go to the Mets games in Queens. Now, we would go during the week because it was cheaper. And I think my father, one time to spring for my birthday, We went in August, an early birthday present for me on my birthday in October. Sprung for box seats at Shea Stadium, and he paid a whopping $20 per ticket.
Ken, you
Okay,
remember when?
that was a lot of money. Now this is box seats, first base side, but it was still $20. That was a lot of money back in 1978.
Ken, you remember the $8 bleacher seats at Fenway?
Yeah.
Remember that was the staple of Fenway Park.
Right.
The bleachers, $8. Why? Because you're gonna cook in the sun all day. You
Right,
don't want
exactly.
bleacher seats, they're $8. You're gonna cook. Try to get a bleacher seat now at Red Sox at Fenway Park.
Oh, good God.
Holy Christ. It's
I mean,
now
when I was
real
in law
estate.
school, Rob, we used to go there sometimes for the $8 bleacher seats because that's all we could afford. But yeah, no. I agree with Rob. I agree with you. I am just very, very concerned. Media concentration has been bothering me for years. I think we can dedicate a whole show.
Yeah, we
to
could do
media
a whole
concentration.
show. Clancy says Red Sox don't support their workers. The workers are back to work. They haven't made an agreement on the contract yet. I talked about it last week on the show, but they are back to work, and they are trying to hammer out a contract with their concessions people. We'll see what they go from there. But for those who didn't know,
keep one thing in mind. Let's be clear: those workers are not Red Sox employees. They work for Fenway Park. The Red Sox are just a tenant.
Right.
The Red Sox don't control Aramark Catering or those employees.
That's right. Amaranth. They don't.
There was a deal. There was a deal with the the workers and the Red Sox that they encouraged all the fans to go, just not to buy anything from Aramark while you're in the stadium. So it wasn't about the Red Sox, just to be clear to people about that.
Yeah. Frank Zanowski in the chat. He says he was a bleacher creature. He remembers the $8 seats. There he goes.
Oh, I remember them. I remember them. When my first year in law school, I remember it after their first year. One of the guys who worked in the library, he was actually an alumni and an attorney. He turned me on to them because I complained. I'm here in Boston. I can't go see the. He says, "Why don't you go get the bleacher seats? It's like go to a weekday game, $8. You can take the T, and just walk there." And I remember we got there that day. We bought them, and it was incredible, great game. It was a night game, which it wasn't that bad, but still, you cook like a freaking, like a baked potato. But it was worth $8.
I just looked it up. Guess how much an infield dugout box seat in the bleachers is? Guess how much it is for that seat now?
I would say at least $50.
$312. That's the infield dugout. So that's above those seats, those prime seats above the pitcher's dugout.
$312. So if you took your boys,
upper bleachers are $12. Upper bleachers right now are $12.
Okay, but if you took your boys, Sinister One, you're telling me, let's say you decided to treat your boys to a Red Sox game, and you bought those seats. That's $1,200 for you. $900. I mean,
and I'm gonna assume those $12 seats are the seats up behind the billboard.
Yeah,
the billboard. So I'm sure those $12 seats are there. And also, I didn't know this. The price changes depending on the matchup. So if it's the Yankees, that price.
And that doesn't surprise me. That doesn't surprise me.
Yeah, that's craziness. That's. Oh God. Okay, 7:35. Did that story. Also here in Brockton, Judy Sullivan in the legal booth. She's stepping away from her seat, so that seat is going to have a closely divided race for the school committee. Also in the legal booth. Well, actually, that's not the legal booth. That's really the intro to Trump Troubles. In Trump Troubles, just going to announce this real quick. I want to thank everybody who's supporting me, helping me, as I made my announcement to run for Ward 5 City Council. I'm just keeping it short and sweet, let people know, and that's it. That's all I'm going to say on that. And just follow my my Facebook page that's set up for me running for Ward 5 City Council. Now, here we go. We got a lot of stuff to talk about. First and foremost, the job reports came out. 73,000 jobs were added for the month of July. It was projected that we were going to add 110,000. We fell short. News came out, and it was like the next morning. President Trump fired the person who brought that news up there that they fell short. We know why it fell short. Come on now. Plus, he's not getting along with the man that adjusts and oversees the federal rates. There was an interesting video out there. I'm not sure if you guys saw it, but President Trump was sitting there with, I forget the guy's last name for the guy who does the federal rates in the country. And Trump says it's 3.1 billion or million or something. And the guy says, no, it's not. And Trump's other guy that's beside him says, oh, it is. We checked. Brings out the paperwork. He gives it to the guy from the Federal Reserve. He looks it over and he says, puts the little glasses on. It was like a scene in the movie. He says, you added the fourth building. And Trump says, yeah. He's like, because this. And the guy's like, that building's been built for 5 years now. Wah, wah. So Trump is now, because he was made to look like an idiot once again, they're saying that he's trying to do everything he can to get the Federal Reserve guy out now. And Rob, you've talked about this. This is the type of tyrant this man is. Like I said, he fired the person who released the job reports information. And now he's trying to get rid of the man who oversees the Federal Reserve. Because he was supposed to drop the rates, and because of all the tariffs and all this crap going on, he couldn't drop the rates or raise the rates. He's keeping them the same because we have no idea where this economy's going, because it's every day, the tariffs drop. The tariffs are back. Oh, we've negotiated the tariffs that we thought. So I'm going to let Rob speak on this first. You've been covering a lot of this over at the court.
Yeah. So first of all, I think you were talking about Jerome Powell, the chairman of the Federal Reserve.
Yes, Jerome Powell.
So
yes.
So for people to know which story we're referring to on that, I'm going to talk about the Bureau of Labor Statistics for a minute, and I'll do this quickly, but I want to give a little bit of background because a lot of people might not know what Bureau of Labor Statistics is, BLS. It's a part of the Department of Labor, and it is an independent agency within the department. It is nonpartisan. In fact, this person, this woman who Trump wants to did fire, I guess, was confirmed by the Senate almost unanimously. Now, most people are not confirmed unanimously in the Senate or anything close to it. This was not a partisan who was confirmed on a party line vote. This was a career proven civil servant, nonpartisan, objective, independent, confirmed almost unanimously by the Senate years ago for this job. So you're not talking about some, fly-by-night political operative. The problem is Trump always sees the world through his eyes. He wants the government to be full of loyalist operatives. So he thinks everybody who's there must be a loyalist operative for somebody else if he didn't appoint them. And he's just absolutely wrong about that. There are plenty of excellent career civil servants who are not partisan, and even if they vote one way or the other, they're still nonpartisan in their work. And so I don't know who this woman votes for. I don't care. Her career speaks for itself. And if, as Trump says, she was trying to play politics with the numbers, I would respond in a couple of ways. Number one, this is only the messenger. This is not the person who makes the numbers. This is the person who takes the reports, compiles them, and releases them in accordance with the law that says when you can release numbers so that it's not, everybody knows when it's going to happen. So you deal with, stocks and other economic stuff around these reports. They're not released off cycle because it can have an impact. So it's done in accordance with the statute. So she's not the one who even comes up with the numbers. She's the messenger. He fired the messenger, to use the cliche. Secondly, if she was inclined to play politics with the numbers, you may remember in the 2024 election that we just had not too long ago, Trump won, right? And defeated Harris, who was the incumbent vice president, but incumbent in the administration. This is the same person who released a devastating jobs report just weeks before the election. The very last jobs report was devastating to the Biden administration, which included Vice President Harris, the Democratic nominee. And a lot of people say this killed her chances. That was a very close election. And they think that this economic report just really stole her thunder and pushed Trump over the top. If this BLS woman wanted to play politics, she would have withheld that report or changed that report. She didn't. She released it the way she always does, the way her predecessors always have, which was the actual numbers. And it was devastating to the Democratic campaign. So there is no politics being played here. Now, the other thing, the last thing I'll say, and then I'll stop because I'm not trying to be a professor here. Ken will take out his pillow in a minute. The last point I want to make is if you look at the numbers that have been released during the Trump campaign, Trump administration since January, right? Since this administration took office, and we've had several reports now. He's been in office long enough. We've had a bunch of these. If you go back and look, the estimates, this is what comes out from the political side, the estimates. The estimates have been so inflated because that's what Trump does, and he demands of people that everything has to be inflated. Oh, look at these numbers. We're going to create 500,000 jobs, 300,000, whatever. Those numbers were all so inflated that when the correct numbers, and the correct numbers tend to come out a couple of months after the projected numbers, right? So you're 2 or 3 months later. All of these numbers that the Trump administration, his people, have put out have been so grossly inflated that you're talking about numbers like, this is a hypothetical. These aren't the exact numbers, but let's say in March, there were they put out 150,000 jobs and the real number was 15,000 jobs. That's the kind of inflation that the Trump administration has been playing with this. And the BLS has nothing to do with that. The politics are being played by the administration, not the BLS, not the civil servant clerks. So everybody should be offended by this. And even Republicans have spoken out, not all, unfortunately, but some have spoken out about this because they recognize that this was a career civil servant who is not partisan and didn't deserve to be fired and not deserve to be blamed. That the jobs report are the jobs report. You can't change it.
Right.
So that's the problem.
So on my page, Ken, I'm going to ask you this because there's a lot of MAGA people. There's MAGA people on my page. Like when the numbers were released and Trump fired the person's like, well, these jobs are lost because of stuff that Biden did under his administration. I'm like, dude, it's July. We're now into the reports that are reflecting the decisions he's made. I know, Ken, you must have been like, I'll let you speak on that. What you had
Okay, a couple of things. Number one, I think we need to do a little deeper dive on what the BLS does and why it's so important. There are 3 government agencies you've never heard of, which basically are so critical to the United States. One, the Department of Justice is the Office of Legal Counsel, OLC. They are the federal government's lawyer. They tell the federal government how to interpret statutes and administrative edicts. Number 2 is the Bureau of Labor Statistics. This is important. They run the U.S. economy. Every decision about the U.S. economy is based starting with these statistics, including when the Federal Reserve hikes or lowers interest rates. They also have an effect on tax policy, on trade policy. This is the base number. If you look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs, remember that from basic psychology, food, shelter, clothing, they're food, shelter, clothing. Every decision springs from them. That's why you need important data. And the last but not least is there's a small agency with the Department of Agriculture called the U.S. Department of Agriculture Agricultural Rating Agency. You ever see grade A eggs? They're the ones that do that. They are the ones who set agricultural policy, and they're the reasons why you don't have poisoned food. They are the vanguards to make sure that our food isn't poisoned. Okay, agencies never heard of. Now let me explain to you why the BLS statistics are so impossible to fudge. How did the BLS come up with these numbers? Well, first of all, they send out thousands of surveys to employers, to employees, everything else. Number 2, they talk to state employment agencies and ask them how many new unemployment claims that you had per year. All that information is public. If you think they're cooking the numbers, all you have to do is go online and add all up stuff. You could have the answers in 5 minutes. The other way they do it is they look at investor data that comes out from your major payroll companies. You ever heard of a company called ADP?
Yeah,
or Paychex?
They pretty much monopolize all the paychecks. Yep.
Or
we have Paychex Flex.
Intuit or QuickBooks. All that information, because these are publicly traded entities, has to be printed in their quarterly reports. Okay? So if you want to see the cookie the numbers, go to the private sector and see how much what they're saying. You'll get actually the private sector says we produce even less jobs than BLS. Now, the reason the BLS numbers are a lot better because remember the private sector is only talking about their clients, and BLS is talking about also government jobs, which are not included in the paychecks thing. They're talking about military jobs and other things like that. That's why their numbers are slightly more beneficial. So here's the problem: why you need these numbers. This affects every single part of the U.S. government. Readiness. You want me to draw you a straight line between the BLS and military readiness? You ready for this one?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. They produce financial data for the military. So the military's got to know that when they said, okay, wow, as Rob will back me up, when the economy is better, it's easy to recruit people for the military. Right? Rob, you would agree with that?
I think you said it backwards.
When the economy is I'm sorry. When the economy is not doing great, it's easier for the military to recruit. That's what I'm.
Yeah, I think that's less so, but yes, that's historically true.
Okay.
Okay.
So the military needs to know if there are less people out there, that means they got a chance of recruiting standards. That directly affects how much manpower or people power you have. That affects on what your readiness is to go out and fight. That's just one example. So that's why these numbers have always been the gold standard. That's why no one wants to screw with them, because they need the information. Good, bad, or indifferent, we need this information. That's how we function as a republic. This also has a direct effect on the securities market, because
I saw that.
The security, yeah, you gotta remember, and more importantly, the bond market. Okay, we could not function our society without issuing bonds. What bonds are simply instruments saying, "Give us some money now, and we'll pay it back, in a couple of years with interest." One of the most important aspects of the bond market is something called the commercial paper market. This is something almost no one, unless you work in the industry, knows about. What commercial paper is are short-term debt notes. They're written from one corporation to another. Let's say Bank of America has another $30 million. They don't know what to do with. So they put it out to the market and said, hey, we've got $30 million. Anybody want it for like 30 days at 7% interest? You're General Motors, okay? You need to, you got these brand new cars coming out, these EVs, but they're going to hit the market in 60 days. And you got a cash flow crunch. So you borrow this money to produce them. They get out there, they sell them, they pay them back. Commercial paper. I used to work in a bank that had a lot of this stuff. Those rates, those commercial paper rates, are directly affected by the jobs report. Why? Why would you think they're affected? If there are more people employed, that means people have more disposable income. Therefore, the rates go down. Money is cheap because there's a lot of people out there buying stuff, so money's going to be cheap.
Buy cars. Yep.
If there are less people out there, money has to be more expensive because the higher the risk. That's why you need this information. So when Trump fires this person because he doesn't like the numbers, you're screwing with our entire financial system. And that's what these MAGA's doing.
And of course, he's going to do like he does. He's going to put his own person in that position.
Right.
And you're going to see false numbers now.
Right.
And it's going to affect everything.
Right.
It's going to manipulate the stock market for his elitist buddy.
Right. And here's the problem. If you no longer trust the numbers, then people are going to look elsewhere. They're not going to no longer trust. That's not going to change anything. Trump does what the problem with Trump is being incredibly stupid. You see, he thinks if he changed the message, people will start believing him, and they won't. And that's the freaking problem. That Donald Trump and his MAGAs don't understand. They think they can create a reality when everyone around them says no. You know how they say, "Oh, we all like Trump because he's not a professional politician." That's what professional politicians understand. Okay, they can caress the news, but they need the news. They need accurate information. They call it the downfall syndrome. Has anyone ever seen the movie Downfall?
No.
Okay, it's a movie called Downfall. And it's about the last days of Adolf Hitler, and he's in the bunker, and he's telling about how the Red Army is out the suburbs of Berlin.
Oh,
and he said,
hold on. Is that
yes.
For a while there?
Yes.
Everybody was using the memes of this scene with him and all.
Yes.
Okay, yep. Okay.
Okay.
I have to check
so
that
there's
out
this
now.
great scene where he says, "Don't worry, Steiner is going to head up the Third Army is going to come in and relieve the city of Berlin. And all the journalists are trying to get the courage to tell him that Steiner has been captured. And no one wants to do it, even though that's the truth, that the army doesn't exist. So that's my little rant.
That's great stuff. So, you know, I was going to talk a little Epstein, but then this happened. I don't want to really get into Epstein. I just wanted to clarify something because I had a person get on my page and they said, well, if this was all, why didn't the Democrats release this when they had it? And somebody came on my page and I didn't have to ask this question of Rob, but somebody said that the reason why the Democrats didn't release it is because under the Trump administration, it was Trump that issued the DOJ to seal it and not open it until 2025 or 20. So when people are saying that the Democrats purposely sat on this, they didn't. So please, 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 everybody, stop it. All I got to say is if you think, because I saw Donald Trump in an interview this weekend say that he had no associations and didn't even visit the island and all this stuff. Ken, I'm going to let you say it better. If you believe this, then I'm going to let you give your famous.
Okay. If you believe that Donald Trump doesn't know Jeffrey Epstein or never went on his plane or visited his island on this lovely bridge in Brooklyn, I'm dying to sell you. Cheap. One prior owner, excellent condition. Look,
Squid,
Trump is a pedophile. And just
Squid, you want to just real quick touch on Epstein because I want to really get into this other talk.
No,
it's just crazy. So, you guys have been watching this show, and you know one of the things we talk about is, you know, I go on my page and I battle people left and right and tell them to do their homework. I keep receipts. I want to say, before this election kicked in, we covered some stories across the nation. We talked about what is going on right now in Texas, which is a big deal. This is a big deal as to what's going on in Texas. Some of this stuff was going on in Florida. Some of this stuff went on in South Carolina. Some of these smaller states, we saw this stuff going on and being tested by MAGA regime. And that is gerrymandering. That is the redistricting of districts and things of that sort. I want to say this is a topic that Squared actually brought up, you know, because we saw some of this going on in Florida under DeSantis. And I remember us talking with Rob about this years ago. And we were warned that, hey, this is something that they're possibly going to be starting in the smaller areas and move into the bigger states. Well, Texas is one of the biggest states in this country. And guess what, people? It is happening. It is happening now to the point where Trump is talking about it, about redistricting and gaining more seats so he can keep himself in power, to the point now where we have Democrat officials who actually have left the state and now have warrants for their arrests because they can't have a vote because they've fled the state. I'm going to let R-Squared get into this first because you were the first to really kind of tell people, hey, this is going on. Pay attention. It's happening here. And you were pointing out which states. You were keeping your eye on this gerrymandering. We've heard that word on this show in the last 8 years. And I'm going to let you take the floor on this one because you started this.
Yeah, I won't go into a lot of detail because, again, we could spend hours and hours on this. And, you know, if I talk about this in class, I need the whiteboard because then I can show how districts are created. No, because you can draw and you can show the different ways of making districts because they're not going to be perfect squares, right? That's not possible because you have to base them on population, not grass. If you were basing the district on grass, they could all be perfectly shaped. But states are not perfectly shaped, and you've got artificial boundaries like rivers and mountains and stuff. So, but when you look at these crazy shapes, then you could tell that somebody is manipulating something. And so the issue that you have is there was, before 2000, before 1990, before 2000, there was always some gerrymandering. Both parties did it. They did it to, help out a few districts, make a couple of districts competitive. It wasn't a crisis. It still led to bona fide elections. The voters still had a voice. It wasn't good. And if we knew what it was going to become, maybe we would have done something about it back then. What happened was, with the emergence of Barack Obama as a candidate, the Republicans were so outraged by his election for different reasons, some because of race, some because of whatever. You remember Mitch McConnell and the Republicans, our only goal is to make sure Obama doesn't succeed. I mean, that was the first time people said that out loud, right? And so what they did was they spent millions and millions of dollars funded by the Koch brothers and other big billionaire donors, literally billions and billions and billions of dollars, doing these efforts for Republicans to take over state legislatures. State legislatures had been majority Democratic. The majority of states had majority Democratic legislatures back then. Republicans, and look, there's nothing wrong with wanting to win control of the legislature. That's a legitimate political goal. And spending money was, because of Citizens United and otherwise it was lawful. However, what they did was they put in people, and they put in specific people with the whole focus is when they took power, when the next census came out and they got the updated population numbers, they were going to draw these ridiculous gerrymandered election maps, creating congressional districts, as many as possible, that would favor Republicans, as many as possible that would not favor, or, as few as possible to favor Democrats, and maybe a couple of competitive seats, because there's always going to be some of those. And so what happens is across the country now, you have only about realistically 20 to 30 seats in play in the House of Representatives. That number may change. So, maybe it'll be 40 next year and maybe it'll be 20 another year. But for the most part, you're talking about 20, 30 seats. And so the House of Representatives, 435, most of those are already going to be Democratic or Republican. And the fight is over these handful, relatively speaking, of seats. And that's why those seats are so expensive, because everybody's focused on those. That's where all the money goes. These seats cost millions and millions and millions of dollars. Congressional seats didn't cost millions of dollars in elections, but because all the money goes to those swing states, those swing districts in those states, not necessarily swing states. It could be in solid red or blue states. It's just these are swing districts. And so control of the House of Representatives goes by who wins the majority of these 20 to 30 districts. And that's not the way this was intended to be. It's just not. Every member of Congress should be beholden to the voters. And every member of Congress should have to justify his or her record to the voters. And there should be the ability to challenge. And whoever wins, wins, right? Whether you're Democrat or Republican or something else, people should have the right to contest a seat. And so the problem with all these so-called safe seats, and what I mean by a safe seat is that they're so overwhelmingly one way or the other that it doesn't matter about turnout, it doesn't matter about popularity, because there's just no way for the party to lose the seat. The incumbent can walk away and a new one will come in of the same party and just take it. And so those representatives, almost 400 of them in the House, don't have to do anything. They don't have to get anything done. They don't have to justify their work to the voters. They don't have to do anything. And that's why you have all of this nonsense going on in the Congress, because they don't have to do the work. They can play games. They could be extreme. They could be rude and unprofessional. All the stuff that people see and get frustrated and say, I hate politics, I hate Congress, I hate whatever. It's because none of them have to, the majority of them don't have to fight for their seats. That's the result of this. And I did say a couple of times that both parties did it. However, the Democrats did not do what the Republicans did going back to the 1990s and 2000s. They probably should learn to do that, quite frankly. And so even though there are Democratic seats, because look, population is population, you have to go where the vote is. What the Republicans have done is they'll make a district 90% Democratic so they can make other districts 60, 70% Republican and win the district. Because remember, you only have to win by one vote. So instead of, the Democrats, who technically could win a lot more seats in fairly drawn districts, can't. They can win their districts, and then it becomes, again, who can win the swing districts. So that's a quick way of looking at it, because, again, we can spend hours on this, and I don't want to do that. It's already 8 o'clock. But that's the danger of gerrymandering is, number one, the members don't have to do their job. They don't have to be responsible to the voters. And you really don't have any legitimate elections except for a handful of seats. That's the problem.
Ken, you wanted to add on this? Because it is crazy. The Texas Democrats are so pissed off that they didn't show up for the vote, and there's warrants issued for their arrest. It looks like the governor of Minnesota, Tim Walz, was actually aiding them to be able to get out. So you wanted to touch base on that also, the crazy?
Yeah, look, here's the problem. If you're a political geek like I am, you will go online and see all the polling numbers, because there are a whole mess of polling numbers out there. Every one of them is saying the Republicans are going to get slaughtered. I mean, slaughtered in the 2026 elections. I mean, the Democrats are competitive in races they haven't been competitive with in 50 years. There is one poll that I like. It's called TidalWave.com. It comes from the joke about the Republican wave, and they are saying that there won't be their last time they saw this type of change was when Reagan won in 1980. And
that was a big time.
Big wave from the Solid South becoming Democrat to Republican. They're predicting this. The Republicans read the same polls everybody else is, and that's why they're doing it. They're trying to shore up. And the gerrymandering isn't even funny anymore. I mean, they're not even trying to be subtle about it. And Rob's absolutely right. When you take a district and turn it into 90% Democratic district, 10% Republicans, you want to take the pressure off other districts. That's what they're trying to do. And they've been rather successful with it. However, here's the thing that Republicans don't understand, because Republicans are morons. Two can play at that game. New York and California can gerrymander their districts. So can Pennsylvania, which is currently in Democratic hands. If they did that, you'd never get a Republican House ever again. You never would. If you gerrymandered New York, California, Pennsylvania, well, Illinois would be tough to do. Illinois is it's tough to do. But let's say New York, Pennsylvania, and California, you gerrymander it like they want to do in Texas, you'd never get a Republican House ever again. They'd never be able to get that kind of support. Not only that, you have politicized things that have never been political. A lot of states for years had a nonpartisan districting commission. And it was partisan. Everybody knew it was partisan. But at least they give the veneer of being nonpartisan. And that's changing. You're also having problems about how we're changing. We're becoming more suburban, more ex-urban, and things are getting mixed up. And the Republicans are, ever since Citizens versus United and the ending of the Voting Rights Act, the Republicans felt very empowered to redo it, to give it to favor white rural districts in the Midwest and the South. That's going to come and bite them in the tuchus, because we've already seen it, and it's going to get worse. And there is no ground for the Texas AG to issue arrest warrants for people not showing up at the House. I mean, they don't want to show up. They don't have to show up. The way you punish them is their constituents vote them out of office.
Do you think that's all theatrics on behalf
Of course it's theatrics.
Of the Governor Abbott?
Of course it's, yes, because he knows he can't have a quorum without them. I'm surprised they said, well, we don't need a quorum. We're going to do it anyway. And all I can say is, hey, MAGA-MAGAs, remember, turnabout's fair play. I don't know if anyone paid any attention to the mayoral primary election in New York City. And when there was a candidate, Cuomo was supposed to win, and he got his ass kicked by this relative nobody. And I'd argue that's a couple of other things. He is very well known in New York. He's not known well outside of New York, but he's very well known inside New York City. And by the way, Cuomo's hated in New York City. I'm not surprised he got his butt kicked. And that has a lot to do with the fact that he didn't steal, but as governor, he took a lot of money out of the transit authority and gave it to other projects. And now the transit authority is virtually facing bankruptcy, but that's a whole another issue. So what I'm saying is the 2026 election is going to be blood on the floor. And the problem is you're getting a new crew of Democrats who grew up under Donald Trump and George Bush are going to simply say, hey, old rules, screw it. You want to have a revolution? You want to play hardball? Freak it. We've got a PhD in hardball. How do they like it when their people are getting fired and they're not getting the relief that they need? The floods in Texas. What's the first thing that the state of Texas did? They cried to the federal government asking for aid. Now, there's a little known bill that's been promulgated let's put it this way. The first time I heard about that, I was working in the Senate in 86. And this bill, which has never gotten out of committee, would put this, it's what we call a Fundamental Fairness Act. What it said is a state could not receive any more in federal aid than it paid in taxes. Okay? It's never gone anywhere. It's never going anywhere. I'm not even sure it's constitutional. But could you imagine states like Florida or Texas saying they couldn't get any aid if they didn't spend the same amount of money as the federal government? They'd be bankrupt tomorrow. Do you know why Texas and Florida and Alabama and South Carolina have low state taxes? Do you know why? Would you take a guess? Simple. The federal government bails them out. If they had to live on their own, they'd be bankrupt. California is what? The sixth? If California was its own country, it would be the number 6 in GDP. New York, I think, would be 14th. Texas would be somewhere around Venezuela or Brazil. Think about that.
I remember Rob saying that before on this.
We've talked about that on the show, and I've written a few pieces about it over the last few years, because this is the thing that offends me the most. Of all the things going on, I don't worry about the Trump nonsense. I hate it. And I do care a lot about the authoritarianism, but I don't follow all the nonsense. What really bothers me more than anything is the donor states and the stealing states. And those are the terms I've used on the show a few times and in writing. And so it is grossly unfair for states to say, we're simply not going to have, income tax, property tax, whatever they need to. Every state has to raise revenue, right? If you want a state that's going to provide services, and that's what states' job is to do, you have to have a revenue stream, right? And so some states have an income tax where you pay on top of your federal income tax. Some do property taxes, sales taxes, whatever they want to do. Everybody has a tax. But you have states like Alabama and Mississippi and Louisiana and and other states. They do tend to be in the South. So, I mean, I am picking on the South because that's where they're located. Not exclusively, but overwhelmingly. And they specifically, because the federal government stupidly, in my opinion, it's not even legal, by the way. I would make this case, but Ken and I, we play around with this all the time privately, but I think it's illegal. Basically pays their part of their state budget. How do they do that? States' rights. These are the people screaming states' rights. These are the people who scream that the federal government is evil. These are the people who want the federal government to go away. The big bad federal government. Meanwhile, all of us in Massachusetts and New York and California and Michigan and Chicago and Pennsylvania and New Jersey and states all over the country, mostly blue states, our tax dollars is being given away by Congress. And not many people talk about it. It comes up periodically, but not enough. Congress is just giving our money away as if we have money to spare. We have a huge deficit. We don't have money to spare. We're just giving money so that Alabama and Mississippi and all those other idiots don't have to raise money.
That's damn right.
We're paying for their roads. In Massachusetts, we pay for our stuff here, right? We pay taxes in Massachusetts. And most states that our listeners probably listen to, we pay taxes on one level or another. And our states provide the services that we expect them to provide. And we vote in our legislature whether we want more or fewer services, right? We make those decisions as voters. These states just mooch. Thieves. It's thievery. And everybody in a donor state needs to make this a priority.
Craziness. And before we get out of here, I just got one quick topic to talk on, is this $200 million ballroom that wants to be added to the freaking White House. And I see all these people saying it's all going to be donated money, blah, blah, blah. It's not hurting and I say to people, you obviously don't know how government works. These people aren't donating $200 million out of the kindness of their hearts. They're always elitist and they're always getting something in return, like the big, beautiful bill and those big, beautiful tax breaks. And when people say it doesn't directly affect the cutting of funding for cancer research that the government was giving to the American Cancer Institute, do your research, do your math, because it does. that funding that comes and pays into the American Cancer Society comes from the extra taxes that rich people have to pay to the government that has to go into either general funding or whatever. For you to say that it doesn't affect these in a trickle down effect, you're crazy. You don't understand how government works. And hence the reason why these people are making these charitable donations. I feel like some of them make these donations because it's just a write-off form. Somebody said, well, if they're donating to a ballroom, that's a political campaign donation. I'm like, I don't think so. I think that's when somebody's running for office, that's a campaign donation. I don't think donating money towards a ballroom for the White House is a campaign donation. I think this is a write-off. So could one of you guys maybe clarify that on that question? Are these donations write-offs, or are they favors for, like I said, the big beautiful bill? You're going to get all these less taxes to pay.
First of all, no one gives money unless they want something in return. Okay, they do. I've known a lot of people who have given a lot of money for charity, but they want something. They want their name in the paper. They want to see it on the board. They want to stroke their ego. Fine. Okay. I'll give you an prime example.
I want a bathroom in their name at the ballroom.
Right. I'm the ritual committee director of my synagogue. Okay. The High Holy Days are coming up. One of the big honors you give out is because of the Torah on the first day. If you don't think that I look through and figure out who our big donors are to make sure they get an aliyah on the first day, you're crazy. And I did it, and I'm doing it again this year. That's the fact of life. Now, we need the money, and these people are very generous. So yeah, we're going to give them the little ego stroke. If you think that people are giving money for this new beautiful ballroom out of the goodness of heart, fine. Then tell you what, I'm going to make a challenge. Let it set up a blind trust. You can't deduct the money from your taxes, and you get no recognition. No one is allowed to tell who donated the money. See how many people donate that. Okay. Now, as much as I like to claim that as my idea, that's Bernie Sanders' idea. And he suggested that years ago in political campaign contributions. What he said is all political campaigns should be done anonymously. They don't know who's giving them money. So therefore you can't call in any favors.
Frank Zanowski in the chat says, how many ballrooms does this place need? Now, here's where the funny thing is with this story. Trump wants the ballroom because he got tired of past presidents hosting events at the White House under ugly white tents. They were doing events at the White House lawn under tents to save money. We're only here doing these events for one night. People come in, the caterers and everybody were under these white tents. Trump had an issue with it. It's the White House. We shouldn't have. We need to have gold walls and all this crazy stuff. Here's the thing, people. You know where the money's going to come in. People are going to have to pay to rent the White House. Like for me, I'm unhappy right now at the fact that they're trying to get a UFC fight on the lawn of the White House. You're talking a major sporting event in the history of... I don't agree with this at all. Dana White was up there talking about you at the RNC, and now you're going to turn around and host the UFC event on the. I don't agree. This is what I'm talking about, people. This is where sports is crossing. I swear, I'm gonna let you get into this.
No, I mean, first of all, we don't need the ballroom. It is grifting, and the other thing is you have to look at this. I'm not sure exactly how the money would be raised, because if this is part of the White House, which it is, the White House complex, meaning it's part of an official government facility, it's part of the government, owned by the government. The government has to pay its own bills. They can't accept donations for something that's the government. The government has to pay its own bills. You cannot donate. The government is not a charity. There are charitable events that the government may have involvement in, but this is basically, you can't pay the government's bills for it. That's illegal. So if there are donations for the ballroom, then it's not a government ballroom. So whose is it? Is it going to be owned by some independent organization that leases it to the... I mean, look at the complications here, right? Is it a moneymaker? Is Trump going to own it? And then future presidents have to lease it from the Trump organization when they want to use it?
That would be ugly. Oh, that would be
because
ugly.
that's the type of grift he does.
Yeah,
this is what he does. This is the way he thinks. I'm not saying that's what it is. I have no evidence of that, and I'm not a conspiracy nut. I'm just saying that you can't donate for this. So if money is coming in, and I don't believe that it is. I mean, he says we're making money off of, these countries that are, trying to get out of the tariff thing. We're not making any of that money. That's not money coming to us. But anyway, I don't know how they're taking donations for the ballroom. There isn't a legal mechanism to do it.
Really? Oh, that boggles my mind because that's all they're pushing. I saw Kaylee, it's going to be 100% donations, all the $200 million.
No,
they
he's
asked
right.
him on the thing, and he said, I could just cut the check myself. And I'm like, really? You can cut the check yourself? I'm like, that's awkward. I'm like, why is nobody calling him out on that one? Go ahead,
He
Ken.
probably signed an executive order that changed the rule, but he can't do that.
Right. There's something in the U.S. Constitution called the Contracts Clause. It's a little known, and it's in all 50 state constitutions as well. It says that once the U.S. government or any state government agrees to do something at a set price, they have to comply with that. If they don't do that, they can be sued in the Court of Claims. I'll give you an example since to one. You used to work for Paul Revere Transportation, right?
I still do. Yep, I still work there.
Paul Revere has contracts with the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, if I remember correctly.
Passport, MBTA, yes, they do.
Right. And they get paid a set amount either monthly or bi-weekly. I don't know how your contract runs, or maybe it's quarterly.
Depending how it's charted, correct. Yep.
Okay. So, and there's a rate. So Paul Revere is going to build, I'm going to start some term. Let's say that they're going to build them quarterly, and the quarterly payments are $80,000 on whatever particular contract. So quarter one ends, Paul Revere's accounts payable department sends the treasurer a bill. The treasurer then tells the comptroller to cut a check. Well, they don't cut a check anymore. They probably do an EFT, right? If Governor Healy decides that, we need to save some money this quarter, we're not going to pay you, Paul Revere. Go lump it. Do you know what Paul Revere would do? They would file the suit. They would file the suit in the Chancery Division of the Suffolk County Superior Court. And they'd win in about 2.5 seconds. Because all they'd have to prove is, here's my contract, here's the rate of pay, here's my invoice, here's Governor Healy telling me to go bleep myself. And they'd probably get attorney's fees because of the contract clause in the Massachusetts state constitution. So again, that's the same thing as Rob said, that we can't take donations. If we tell a contractor to build a ballroom, we've got to pay them. We can't have somebody else do it. It's a literally engraved in stone, or in parchment, I should say.
Insane. Good show tonight. Let me get into some of the stuff we got for the outro banners, upcoming events. Thank you for everybody for helping out with the show, all the shows that I produce. Bat Bus After Hours Workforce, Brockton Police Cadet, recruiting now. We also have Emerge Career, $75,000 a year you could try to make for the CDL. You haven't tried that yet. I know Frank Zanowski's in the chat. If you can, let me know how that went. Journey Church, Food Pantry, Saturday program, Stay Young Fitness, Bishops. We got Ride Free till June 2026 for the Bat Bus. And then we got the DV Awareness. That's coming up this week. I'll be there riding the go-karts at Supercharged at Rentham. Then we have, these are the political people who are running. They have events coming up that they send me to post for free of charge. Sandra Santillo, her event's coming up August 13th on Wednesday. Brockton Community Night, free admission for the Brockton Rocks. We also have the Artist Summer Program. That closes out on the 16th. That's free on Skinner Street. And then Summerfest, thank you everybody for coming down on Summerfest last week. We have another Summerfest coming up this week at Salisbury Park. Ride for Peace is Sunday, August 17th. And then Brockton Fire has one last week at Brockton Library, which is tomorrow. to sign up if you want to get on that test. Free Warrior for yoga for veterans and first responders. That last one is coming up at the end of the month, and there's one on the 6th, which is tomorrow. They'll be drawing this motorcycle for the Broken Chains Biker Church. That's on the 23rd, I think, but you can still buy your tickets for that. And then the 100th birthday celebration for the DW Tower in DW Fields Park. That takes place August 22nd and 23rd. And then make sure to visit these black restaurants on Saturday, every Saturday in August. Tambu Bistro on the 10th. We have Sunrise Steakhouse on the 17th. Salo on the 31st. Make sure to support those. And then we have August 31st, Brockton Monday at East Middle School. And then we have a golf tournament for Stephen Montero, the firefighter who passed away December 15th. And we're already talking back to school, people. Back to school drives are starting up, pop up around the city. Make sure to get in on those. The Brockton South Middle School Athletic Awards on October 9th. Brockton's Farmer Market every Friday. And then these are the candidates who have sent their banners in, who are running for office to be shown. John Bradley, Durancourt, Mayor. Moses Rodriguez for Mayor. Jeff Chanel, who was on the show last week, Counselor at Large. Paul Brathwaite, we him on the show weeks ago, Ward 6. Tony Rodriguez, Ward 4 School Committee. Sandra Santillo, Ward 5 School Committee. Then Raise Up Basketball. Moses Rodriguez is having a fundraiser August 7th. We have a masquerade party August 16th for the Tuskegee Airmen Motorcycle Club. That's it, people. Thank you for tuning in to the show, hanging out with me tonight. I'm going to let my guys go around the horn and say their goodbyes. I'm going to start with that.
Yeah, thanks, everybody. Hope you found the show informative. That's what we aim for, and can't wait for the next one.
Want to thank all of our listeners and viewers, all 12 of you. Be safe, be kind, and we'll see you after Labor Day.
Yeah, Jesus. Yeah, these guys will be back on. It's going to be already September, and we'll be on that countdown headed to Christmas. I can't believe this crap. Man, this is crazy. We're getting ready to head out of here. I want to thank everybody for tuning in the show. Turnbuckles and Spilt Liquor is at 9:30. We will be talking about SummerSlam that happened this past weekend. And once again, it's great stuff. But other than that, I want to thank everybody for tuning in the show. It's been great stuff. SpongeBob, do me a favor. Take us home.
Well, see you next Tuesday.
Thank you for listening to The Booth on Hoobazoo and HatcherRadio.com. Please follow the Facebook page and subscribe to the podcast at Apple Podcast, iHeartRadio, and Spotify. The Booth is a Sinister One production hosted by Sinister One.
I've got to start hanging out with friends that are a little more intelligent and understand politics and stuff. It's just that I'm up on this level up here, and all my friends are down here. Me, nah. You guys, nah. Maybe a little more down in here. Screw you guys, I'm going home.
I smoke, I drink, I do my thing. These bitches hating, so you know I got to make it plain. Don't do cocaine, but your chick, my main. We stick together, true forever, yeah, you know we bang. I miss those days, which was easy. If only I made it, bitch, don't repeat. Now that I done upgraded, I've been upstate, and y'all think I'm playing. And I got a hit now for these weak ass hoes who think I ain't slaying. Try me, and I'll probably end up laughing, cause I never back down. I'm that chick with a clean ass whip, I don't need that shit, I got my own now. I get hurt, I get tired of fussing, fighting, guess I gotta crack down. Don't mess with me, cause on everything, I'ma have to bring the whole city out.
WHOOBAZOO, that's Hoobazoo.com.
Enter website.